Hi, this is Mike Piniella, and welcome to my reflection video, where I will document the epic 33 credit journey that has been my Boise State EdTech Master's Program education. In the summer of 2013, I made the life-altering decision to leave behind my 2-decade career in marketing analytics, to explore new horizons, to seek out a new life, to boldly go where, well, to be honest, I didn't have a clue. So I started reading. One of the first books I read was Jane McGonigal's Reality is Broken. If you haven't read McGonigal, not that McGonigal, here's the gist. People spend so much time playing video games because their video game lives are more fulfilling than their everyday lives. Video games give us an important overarching purpose. They enthuse us to tackle challenges, for we are confident in our ability to succeed. They fulfill us as we are working hard at the edge of our abilities. And they create interpersonal connection, for we are cooperating with others with shared goals to accomplish meaningful outcomes. McGonigal argues we don't need to play less video games. What we need is to find ways to infuse these same game mechanics in our everyday lives, including how we educate our children and our adults. I was all in on this vision, so in the fall of 2013, I became a professional video game player. No, actually, I enrolled in Boise State's EdTech program. So, armed with epic meaning, the reinvention of education and my professional self, and the extremely urgent optimism to complete a master's program degree as fast as humanly possible, I embarked on my first semester. And I must say that I adapted very easily to online education because working at home alone in front of a computer for many hours at a time was pretty much what I had been doing in my old job for the last decade. Also one of the reasons I was leaving my old job. That said, my first semester could not be characterized as blissfully productive, for with every article, assignment, or discussion post I saw, there were countless terms, concepts, and technologies that I had no clue what they meant. I didn't even know what a LMS was, though I can now confidently tell you it has nothing to do with a middle school. There were many nights that first semester where I was left questioning my decision to change careers. It just seemed like such a hopeless uphill battle to overcome being such an educational noob. There were a few minor breakthroughs that semester. The first was when I did my screencast, and then when I did my first Moodle lesson. For these both felt like educational specific type skills. But as much as I loved my Moodle lesson, in the end it was still a slide-driven presentation, let me tell you what you need to know type of approach. So that's why when I got to the web quest in 502, suddenly this felt like an entirely different beast. Though I didn't yet have a name to put to this type of task-driven, learner-directed, Web 2.0 technology-fueled, teach-by-example pedagogy, I knew it felt right. Prior to the web quest, I felt like I was designing web pages with educational content. But with this project, suddenly I felt like I was designing instruction, albeit a bit paint by numbers given the whole web quest patterns. I was identifying and organizing resources. By the way, neoplasticism is the artistic movement that is most commonly associated with Mondrian and the Partridge Family school bus. I was developing tasks for the learners to do. Here is an example where they are comparing and contrasting a neoplastic work from another era. I was having them create their own digital painting using an app called Laundromat, and then eventually they were using that painting within their own business card, or membership card, if you will. I was developing assessments. Here I had developed my first quiz in SurveyMonkey, and I also had developed my first rubric, which I thought was a lot of work. And, here I also had developed my own teacher page and gone out and figured out how to align what I was creating with standards that existed. And, and finally, this was really where I kind of got my first glimpse of how my sense of humor and creative writing might meaningfully intersect with what I wanted to do with educational technology. I wrote this whole web quest in the imagined first-person voice of the movement's creator, Theo von Doesburg, and I had a lot of fun with that. But in terms of everything coming together and really feeling like, hey, I can do this, I can design instruction and make things that are interesting and engaging, this was really the key turning point. With my confidence on the rise, in semester number 2, I ignored advisory advice and went for broke, enrolling in 4 courses. I wasn't stressed about the workload, blissful ignorance there. I was stressed about the fact that I had no classroom environment to implement my instructional design project. The closest thing I had was a U14 rec soccer team. But the universe works in strange ways, for about a few days later, through connections, I landed an unofficial gig at Lafayette College, providing technology and instructional design support to a newly created multimedia journalism course entitled Visualizing Information. And thus began the most intense 4-month learning experience of my life. With constructivism, and particularly connectivism, I found names for my natural pedagogical leanings. And with the online course I was designing and the residential course that I was helping out with, I was putting that pedagogy into daily practice. The two courses became so intertwined I often forgot which one I was working on, so it's only fitting that I show you both. Given the dependence of multimedia journalism on the internet, I thought it was a natural fit for a connectivist approach. But enough theory, let's talk manifestations. For connectivists, the arrival of the internet changed everything. It democratized knowledge. No longer did it make sense for resources to be behind closed LMS walls. As such, I wanted my course to be an open educational resource. So I chose to design it in iTunes U Course Manager, which would also make it a mobile platform, which seemed appropriate. I used iTunes U to provide course information and assignments, but for the provision of actual course resources, I utilized the social bookmarking service Pearltrees. I did this because, 1, Pearltrees allows the user to shape the resource set, and 2, learners could provide feedback on every resource they utilized. And for the technology used to create the various artifacts, I exclusively utilized free Web 2.0 services. Consistent with connectivist thinking, I adopted a peer or fellow node orientation, leading by example and creating sample artifacts. Consistent with the real world, I wanted the learners in my course to be exposed to a variety of voices, not just mine, and that included web tutorials. The learners in general had to self-teach themselves the technology in the course. But herein lies the rub with many connectivist courses. Learners end up feeling like this: overburdened, confused, and overwhelmed. To help mitigate this issue, I strayed from a strict connectivist pedagogy, sorry Siemens and Downs, and infused my course with a heavy dose of small groups. At the heart of this effort was a private Google Plus community. While a true connectivist might abhor anything private, I felt it important for the learners to have a safe place to communicate. The formula for both the Lafayette and my online course was similar. For each form of multimedia journalism, such as a blog, podcast, or hero photo story. Step 1. Find and discuss exemplary artifacts. Many of these artifacts were identified by the students themselves. Step 2. Identify the key elements of a successful artifact. Often this was done through blogging or the creation of wikis, but in this example, I created a slideshow that is built around the non-example. Step 3. I would introduce a lead Web 2.0 technology and present an artifact that I had created. It showed the learners what we were looking for, but it also conveyed that sense of, if I can do it, and I have gray hair, anybody can do it. Here's a short clip of my photo story that was created in WeVideo. Step 4 was to provide tutorial resources, and based on the complexity of the task, scaffold with practice or group activities. For example, with podcasting, students got practice with Audacity by re-editing my botched interview with the instructor. So, Katie, to begin...
Actually, it's Kathleen.
Oops. Step 5 was for the learners to create their own artifacts against the topic that they had picked at the beginning of the semester. And then these were presented and a peer review took place. And finally, step 6 was the students would reflect on the work, and then I would solicit feedback regarding future enhancement of what we had just done. The big surprise for me was how much I got to do in the real-life course once the instructor saw what I could do. I wouldn't go blabbing this to the Lafayette provost, but I even led the class on Fridays. I got to teach my own instructional design project. When the smoke had cleared at the end of semester 2, our real-life course had gotten kick-butt reviews, and my iPad course too. And my confidence, comfort zone, and knowledge base had expanded exponentially. Oh yeah, and I still had all my hair, which was an unexpected bonus. Returning to McGonigal's game mechanics, my first 2 semesters were certainly filled with epic meaning, urgent optimism, and blissful productivity. More importantly, in my Lafayette experience, I felt like I had helped other learners experience these same things. But as to the social fabric of my own online education, well, it was rather thin. I was awash in what the connectivists would call weak bonds. I was drawing knowledge from a great network of informed instructors and helpful and experienced co-learners, but I didn't really feel connected to anyone or anything. I figured it was just the nature of the online learning beast, and perhaps my own personality type. But 2 courses from my 3rd and 4th semester of my BSU EdTech education really changed my perception of the social fabric that can be created in an online learning environment. I've always been adept at what might be called anti-social learning. Sit me in a corner and ask me to absorb gobs of information and reflect upon it with blog posts and cool Web 2.0 artifacts, and I'm all over it. But throw me into a live environment and Some folks fear death, others public speaking, but for me, it was definitely the Twitter chat. The need to react and express ideas quickly and succinctly in response to unpredictable conversation turns. A flurry of Twitter motion and a cacophony of ideas and hashtags and links and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! Whew. But like anything in life, sometimes you just have to jump in the pool.
Black hole! Jesus!
Actually, it was kind of fun once I stopped trying to swallow the ocean. I can't read every tweet like I read a page in a textbook. It doesn't work. I need to take my cues from this guy. Scan and then dive in, baby. By the time we finished our mandatory online chats and webinar live conference participation, I was a well-oiled tweeting and back-channeling machine. More importantly, I felt connected to my new professional world in a profound way. Discussion forums are great, but it's kind of like a chess game played out over time. The game is still good, but there's nothing like playing in the park. As McGonigal would tell you, to weave strong social fabric, learners need to do things together. My small group in our network learning course, shout out to Ryan and John, didn't just review each other's work. We created wikis together and even designed our own mini-course. And because we had teamed up based on common interests such as music and design, I believe our workings together were particularly harmonious and productive. I forged stronger bonds with these 2 classmates over the course of an 8-week summer than I did in any previous 4-month course. My course on teaching and learning in virtual worlds, however, took social fabric to an entirely new level. It wasn't just that there was a weekly synchronous meeting. It was that we shared common doings each week. Sometimes we were working together, like in this Minecraft-based recreation of the early days of the Jamestown Roanoke settlement. Sometimes we were competing, like in this recreation of the Oklahoma land rush. And sometimes we were even trying to kill each other. No, really. In this Hunger Games mod, the instructor himself single-handedly took out at least 6 learners. Yet through it all, we were always part of the same questing tribe, in pursuit of the same larger goal, 2,000 experience points, and an A. I now realize that social fabric isn't about making lifelong friends, or even group projects. It's about creating a sense of membership in something larger than ourselves, like the Boise State EdTech program itself. Now, if this was a Disney production, this would be the portion of the video where I would describe my great new job in my new field and all that happily ever after stuff. Well, not yet, but the momentum is building. In September, I landed my first ever paying gig to develop a website. Here's the website, and more exciting, at least for me, here's the invoice. Based on that work, I was then hired on by Lafayette as, get this, a visiting media artist, to provide technology ideas to a postmodern theatrical production of Frankenstein 2029. My big idea is that Victor Frankenstein has created his own consumer products company. Thanks to Victor Neurotech, one will be able to tweak their thoughts. And the awakening of Frankenstein's monster will be the ultimate new product introduction event. A year and some ago, my reality was definitely broken. Now it's full of ideas, capabilities, connections, and possibilities. And not just professionally. I now have my own music blog with my friend Tom, and a WordPress site for my football pool. And as we speak, I'm designing a surprise Facebook page for my sister's birthday. And I could go on, and I will, just not here. Thank you, Jane McGonigal. Thank you, Boise State EdTech program. Game on, and video over.